It's time for my final review of the Spyderco Sage 6 Sprint Run S90V steel carbon fiber scales. I apologize for the shakiness of this footage. So one cut of rope and one cut of cardboard counts as one cut in the final result. We then test the edge on this paper until the knife consistently snags and stops during the cuts. Note, while cutting the cardboard, my friend noticed the Sage 6 was passing through the cardboard more easily than the Sage 5 had in previous testing. Final result, 300 cuts through rope and cardboard. I then used the knife to cut up some soda box cardboard. Refer to my update video for that footage. I carried the knife and used it for all the daily tasks that came its way. Nothing too interesting or exciting. Packages, envelopes, letters, mail, a little bit of food, whatever. I love cutting the excess tape off the top of these flaps. This is my favorite cut. Cutting the tape off the top of this thing. So in order to give this knife a chance to do some work, I cut little strips down each of these flaps on this cardboard box. The knife does great at this. It's very controllable, very slicey. Here you can see the amount of control I have on these cuts. This knife is very, very sharp, even though it's been doing some work. Very controllable. Next, I cut these little flaps, which are now tassels, off the box. So at this point I check the edge. I note that the knife is no longer scraping arm hair, but it still feels quite sharp. But it still feels like it can do work, however it's no longer scraping arm hair. So I continue, same thing. I cut open these flaps, now I'm cutting this tape off like I enjoyed doing. As you can see, the knife just still push cuts right through that tape, although it's a tiny bit more difficult to get it started, but it can still do it. I just resume cutting up the cardboard like I did before. So I just keep cutting this cardboard up into little strips. I'm sure you get the picture. So I've cleaned the tape off the edge in the blade cleaned right up. Now I check the edge for sharpness. It still feels quite sharp. Clearly not scraping arm hair anymore. Still grabs my finger pads laterally this way. About a 3 out of 5. The edge still has a little bit of bite, maybe 1 out of 5. Overall, I'd give the sharpness here about 3.5 out of 5. Probably time to resharpen.
Cut this catalog paper.
It's time to resharpen the knife. I use the Work Sharp Precision Adjust Professional. The edge from Spyderco was 17 degrees or just under, so I did it at 16.5 degrees. This process went relatively quickly. I was able to start at the 320 grit diamond and work my way up. So after the sharpening, I would score this knife a 5+. It was extremely sharp. Able to cut a held hair, but not easily. So for the entire testing, I used the factory edge and just resharpened it for information purposes. So here I'm comparing the Sage 6 on the right to the Sage 5 on the left. Hopefully you can see this, but at the endmost part of the tip on the Sage 6 on the right, the tip is slightly more narrow and pointy than the Sage 5.
Just to recap a little bit, this knife did come with the slight burr from the factory edge. That remained there through my edge retention test. After that test, we were able to strop the edge back, but the burr was still intact. That remained intact basically throughout my testing process, all the way through the heavy Amazon cardboard that I cut. So this S90V steel was great. It performed very well. The edge was very stable. Overall, I was very impressed with the S90V steel. Let's talk about this design overall. I intended to carry this left-handed. I attempted to switch this clip over to the left side, but this screw was too difficult to remove. I didn't try to do any heating tricks or anything like that. I just finally gave up and decided to carry it left-handed with the clip on the right side. So that is a minus, that screw is too tight. So be aware of that. Overall, I really like this design. This blade is very, very slicey. It is slicier than the Sage 5. The tip is more narrow, as I pointed out, and the grind overall feels thinner. I did not, however, measure it with calipers or anything like that, but I can tell you that it slices better than the Sage 5. The grip is very secure in all forms. I didn't have any trouble. I especially like the pinch grip. I will point out that while I was messing around with the knife, just holding on to it, I did notice that when I'm in this choil grip forward position, if I go to grip the knife as if I'm going to do very hard grip tasks, I do come very close to being in contact with this button, as was pointed out in my initial impressions with my friend's hand. He hit that quite easily. I'm hitting it in this rounded part of my finger, so even if I squeeze really hard, it never does anything. I have to actually fudge my finger over a tiny bit to hit that, and then I can sometimes disengage it. This is something that never happened to me during the normal use. I had to actually deliberately slide my finger over to actually have it be a problem. But just be aware of it. I did get a question about whether or not it was possible to do a blade swap with the Sage 5. To my knowledge, you cannot. I did make a video about that. It's just a 1-minute response to that. To my knowledge, you cannot, because the lock interface is not the same. Overall, the handle was very good. This carbon fiber provides a lot of traction. I had no problem with the knife feeling slippery or coming loose or wobbling around in my grip or anything like that. I will note that during use, I noticed that I would cut something and then my hand is just already in position to push this button. So almost all the time, I'm able to just quickly kind of disengage this thing. You do have to be careful to still get your fingers out of the way. But I feel like this knife requires less of what I call finger gymnastics than the regular lock, back liner lock, or compression lock. Meaning with this knife, when I'm done, I can't just do this. I have to actually fudge my hand around, crawl, inchworm my way up, make sure my grip is holding on to something like the clip, and then do this action. This does not require that. I can just, like, I'm already there, and that's really convenient. It is very convenient for me to not have to do so many finger gymnastics to close the knife. Let's talk about value. So this version of the knife is quite expensive. Like I said, I think they're going for about $300. That's a lot of money. I rarely spend more than $250 on a knife, and I have very, 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 very few knives that cost $300 or more. It is extremely rare for me to pay that much. I'm not sure why I did in this case. I think this knife just spoke to me. I really wanted to try it out, so I kind of jumped on it and then thought about it later and was like, oh, that's kind of a lot of money. Is it worth it? I don't know. I'm not an expert on manufacturing of carbon fiber scales. The S90V steel is definitely an upgrade in my opinion. I don't know how much that's worth though. In my opinion, $300 is a lot to spend for a knife like this because I think you can get similar results from other models from Spyderco that just don't cost as much. But I will say this blade is very, very, very slicey, and it's very hard to find a blade this slicey from Spyderco. Your mileage may vary, but this thing reminds me of a Delica, and Delica's sliciness for Spyderco knives, in my opinion, is kind of hard to beat. This is very close to that. So is it worth it? I don't know. You'll have to decide. So let's talk about the S30V version, which is considerably cheaper and I think is going for around $210. I did not test that knife, so I don't have any comment as far as this deal goes or what the peel and ply laminated carbon fiber is like compared to this one. $210 is still quite expensive. In my experience, the way this S90V performed in my testing was noticeably better than my experience with S30V and several different knives that I've tested. Both of these knives may be overpriced, but they might be worth it for you. I have no regrets buying this thing, and I'm proud to have it. It's part of my collection. I love this thing, and like I said, I rarely spend that much on a knife, but I will tell you that after I did my soda box cardboard cutting, which I have a video of, this knife impressed me so much that I ran out and bought the S30V version because I wanted to have another Sage 6 in my collection. So this thing is straight out of the box. I really haven't messed with it. Haven't tested the steel, haven't cut a single thing. I just wanted to show you that I did buy one. So for me, coming from a person who doesn't usually spend this much on these types of knives, I got two of them and I'm happy about it. So hopefully that helps you decide as far as that goes, whatever your budget is. These knives probably are overpriced. I usually don't spend this much, but I was happy to do it in this case. So overall, I recommend these knives very, very much, as long as you know what you're getting, as long as you're aware of the few issues I pointed out, like the button. I'm very happy with my Sage 6, and hopefully I can have a lot of fun time with this one too. Highly recommended. Thanks for watching.